On the day of the eclipse in Philadelphia, I was not worried about actually photographing the eclipse because it was not going to be in totality in our region. I was concentrating more on photographing people watching the eclipse. But as luck would have it, it became very cloudy the few 20 minutes before the actual eclipse and stayed cloudy. So I was able to perch myself underneath the statue of Billy Penn, and the clouds acted as an amazing filter, so I was able to get this shot, plus the fact that the clouds were illuminated in various degrees of brightness and darkness. It made a very eerie effect as well.
Needles littered the floor and pews as people staggered about in what once was known as the Cathedral of Kensington. It had now become a heroin shooting gallery. In this photo, Josh Green rests against overturned pews as he talks about his addiction to heroin. I knew in that moment I needed to capture and document what I saw. It was horrible, and it was sad to see how far heroin addiction reduces people's lives to a living nightmare.
When shooting sports, sometimes the best pictures happen after the action stops. That's when we capture the reaction of the players, their jubilation or dejection. I love this photo of Carson Wentz and receiver Nelson Aguilar after scoring a touchdown pass. They're just so jubilant in their reaction. It's almost a metaphor for how the fans are feeling this year as the Eagles exceed all expectations.
It's one of my favorite photos. The graduation ceremony for the Valley Forge Military Academy. Colonel John Church, the commandant, spreads his arms out, looks to the sky as a gentle rain falls on him. Unscripted, it was a beautiful moment. It's what we're all looking for.
I went with a reporter and a veteran of the Korean War to find a grave of his friend that he never had the chance to say goodbye to. He was killed while sleeping after guard duty in the barracks by friendly fire. It became quickly emotional when he opened up with the first line of a letter he had written him. First of all, I must talk to you about your horrendous death.
New Year's Day 2017 was almost history. When the Mummers Parade cleanup began, the dust, the light, and the silhouettes created this apocalyptic scene that kept me there looking for pictures. I was following this figure with my camera as it walked toward me. Then this amazing light fell on a face, revealing a lone mummer, still in his silky costume, carrying a can of beer. He looked like a soldier walking home proudly from a battle, in a dress. Now that's a mummer.
Just got home from work, saw on the news about this huge fire in Westchester nursing home fire, jumped in the car, got there in 20 minutes, dozens and dozens of seniors being evacuated, fire, police. What struck me strange was that the residents, the neighbors in the neighborhood were actually helping evacuate the people from the scene. The fire was a 5-alarm fire, and we found out days later that 4 people had died in the fire.
The new Miss America has just been crowned, and she's walking down the runway back to all the other contestants. Technically, they're all the losers, but the joy is just so evident, every one of their faces. And it just reminds me of the quality that we all share as humans, where we have empathy for others, and that translates to a coworker who gets a promotion, players coming off the bench for the home run, or other parents in the room when the young musician finishes the recital. It's not always about me, me, me.
It was brave of Jana Curtis and her family to share their story. The photograph of a quiet moment between mother and daughter may have helped other families connect with the issue of lead contamination. As a photographer, it's a privilege to work on stories that have the potential to positively impact the everyday life of people who live in Philadelphia.
When I was 17, I watched U2 perform at the LA Sports Arena in 1987. Fast forward 30 years later, I got to watch them perform at Lincoln Financial Field, but I covered them as a photojournalist. Back then, when I was 17, I was worried about making my parents' curfew. This time, I was worried about making Deadline. We made Deadline, and I got to stand in the parking lot and listen to the band.
The road to this photograph leads from the streets of my hometown of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, to a hilltop cemetery in the Wind River Reservation of Wyoming. Little Chief was among a group of Northern Arapaho students being repatriated from the Carlisle Indian School Cemetery. About a week before Little Chief's reburial, I found out that my great uncle, Dr. Webster Fox, had operated on Little Chief's younger brother, Scott Dewey, when he was a student at Carlisle. During the reburial of Little Chief, I stood where I could see the new grave of Little Chief, and I could see the weathered cross that marked Scott Dewey's grave. I thought about the Carlisle Indian School students, I thought about my great uncle, and I thought about the things that connect us across generations and cultures.